Welcome back to the next journey. This is the second episode in this four-part series about getting curious about what might be next in our lives, especially during those times when we find ourselves asking questions like, what's next for me? How do I find purpose again? Can I still create a life that feels interesting and exciting? And maybe even, who am I now? In the first episode, Nurture Yourself First, I talked about the importance of looking after ourselves, our energy, our health, and our spirit, because I really believe that gives us the foundation to begin exploring what might come next. Today, I want to talk about something I've had quite a bit of experience with in my own life, embracing the unknown. And I have a story for you. I was asked recently if I believe in love at first sight. And I do. I absolutely do. I met my husband through work. He was working for KLM, the Royal Dutch Airlines, and I was working for IATA, the International Air Transport Association. I was coordinating meetings for many of our member airlines and working closely with the KLM representative. And I remember looking at him, those blue eyes matching his blue double-breasted jacket, that rather pensive look my way, and thinking, perhaps we need to work a little more closely together. Well, the sparks flew, and before I knew it, I was hooked. And eventually, this Canadian girl found herself moving across the ocean to the Netherlands. Was I excited? Absolutely. Was I also afraid? Absolutely. Did I know exactly what to expect? No. Was everything carefully planned and figured out? Definitely not. And maybe that's one of the first things I've learned about embracing the unknown. Fear and excitement can exist at exactly the same time. Our original plan was actually to get married in Montreal and continue our long distance relationship for a while. It sounds a little strange now, but because we both worked in the travel industry, it was easier than you might imagine. We thought we had the time to figure out which country we would eventually choose and live in. And then life happened. I discovered I was pregnant. Wonderful news, thrilling news. And also, well, now what? Suddenly, our lovely plan A needed a plan B. And knowing myself as I did, I decided I should move to the Netherlands before our baby was born. I knew that if I had the baby in Canada, surrounded by everything and everyone familiar to me, I might find it difficult, incredibly difficult, to leave afterward. So, not without having every piece of the puzzle in place, I went. I took that leap of faith and I moved to the Netherlands. And that one decision gave me so much. A wonderful family, a new European lifestyle, a career and education that I loved, friendships, travel, experiences, so much fun and joy. But I don't want to make it sound as though I skipped happily through all of it, because I didn't. There were also plenty of moments when I thought, what have I done? I had to learn a new language, and learning Dutch was one of the biggest challenges of my life. I became a mother in a different country. I was raising a family surrounded by different traditions, a different culture, and a different educational system. There were times when I felt anxious, insecure, homesick, uncertain. I had to learn something. I certainly wasn't very good at it in the beginning, but I had to learn how to sit with uncertainty, how to let go of needing all the answers. And believe me, that's not always easy, especially coming from a teaching background. I like structures, I like schedules, I like goals. I like knowing what we're doing and preferably when we're doing it. But life doesn't always cooperate with our lesson plans, does it? And at one point, I noticed myself slipping into some pretty negative self-talk, feeling sorry for myself, focusing on what was difficult and what I was missing. And eventually, though, I realized if I kept doing that, I was helping create the very environment that was making me unhappy. And I didn't want that for myself. And I certainly didn't want it for my family. So slowly, I started trying to look at things differently. Instead of only asking, why is this so hard? I started asking, what could be possible here? Language is a perfect example. I was struggling to learn Dutch, really struggling at times. But because I was having that experience myself, I understood something very important. I understood what it felt like to be an adult, trying to learn another language. The embarrassment, the frustration, the vulnerability, but also the incredible desire to communicate, to travel, to read, to connect with other people. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. I know English. I know what it feels like to struggle with another language. Maybe I could use that. So I started teaching English conversation lessons to adults in my own home. Suddenly, that had made me feel Suddenly, something that had made me feel so vulnerable was now helping me connect and teach people. Whoa! Now this could be fun, exciting, rewarding. Looking back, I think that was one of my earliest lessons in reframing uncertainty as evidence that I was growing rather than evidence that I was failing. And that is a key difference. And then, almost 30 years later, I did it again, this time in the opposite direction. My husband and I decided to take early retirement and move from the Netherlands back to Canada. It had always been a dream of ours, and coming out of COVID, somehow the timing just felt right. Did we have everything figured out? Nope. Did we know exactly how our lives in Canada would unfold? No. Did we have the complete schedule and plan? Definitely not. But this time, perhaps there was one important difference. I'd already learned that I didn't need to know everything that was coming. I knew enough to take the first step, and I trusted that we would handle things as they came. So that's what we did. One decision at a time, one step at a time, and amazingly, so many things fell into place. We seemed to meet one helpful person after another, and somehow we had a remarkably soft landing in our new Canadian home. That doesn't mean there weren't fears. There were. Even something as simple as, will I make new friends? That was a real concern for me. Children can move into a new neighborhood and 5 minutes later they're playing with their best new friend. For adults, it's very different, not quite so simple. We have to make more of an effort. We have to put ourselves out there, walk into a room where we don't know anyone, start the conversation, say yes to an invitation. But I've discovered that some of the most rewarding things happen because we're willing to be uncomfortable for a little while. And perhaps that's what embracing the unknown really means. It doesn't mean we're fearless. It doesn't mean we have all the answers. And it certainly doesn't mean everything will work out exactly as we have imagined. For me, it's learning to hold two things at once, fear and excitement. I know that feeling very well, those butterflies in my stomach. And sometimes I have to ask myself, is this fear or am I excited? I think it's both. And maybe that's okay. Maybe those butterflies are simply telling us something matters here. Something new might be beginning. And now, in this stage of my life, I'm still practicing this. Retirement can bring more questions than answers. What's next for me? How do I find purpose again? How do I make new friends and connections? How do I create a life that I still feel excited about? I certainly don't have all those answers, and that's really part of why I'm doing the next journey. I'm not sharing this because I've discovered the perfect formula for navigating change. I'm sharing it because I've lived it more than once, and I'm still living it. And I'm still curious. I'm still trying. I'm still wondering what might be around the next corner. And I think that's actually quite exciting. So perhaps there's something happening in your life right now that feels uncertain. A retirement, a move, a relationship change, a new idea. Or perhaps it's simply that little voice saying, I know there's more for me, but I can't quite see it yet. You don't have to see it all. Maybe instead you could ask yourself, what uncertainty am I facing right now? And what feels both exciting and a little terrifying at the same time? Because there just might be something worth exploring there. We often think that confidence comes before action. I've discovered that it's usually the other way around. Confidence grows because we take one small step into the unknown and then another. We don't have to see the whole path. We just need enough courage to take the next step. So here's my little invitation to you for this week. Don't make a giant life change. Just try something. Visit somewhere new. Sign up for a class. Volunteer. Have a conversation you've been thinking about having. Say yes to an invitation. Or simply allow yourself to wonder, what if I could? Because new chapters often begin before we feel completely ready. My moves both to and from the Netherlands taught me that. Uncertainty can hold fear, but it can also hold possibility. And perhaps that's something worth remembering as we continue on the next journey. Life has a way of asking us again and again to let go of what was before we can fully embrace what might be. And that brings us beautifully to where we're going next. Because once we become a little more comfortable, not knowing something interesting can happen. We start noticing possibilities. We become willing to try something we've never imagined for ourselves. And sometimes one small experiment opens a door we didn't even know was there. That's what we'll talk about in the next episode of The Next Journey. Explore new possibilities. We'll look at what can happen when we stay curious, try something new, and give ourselves permission to explore without having to know where it's going to lead. Until then, I'd like to leave you with one simple thought. You don't need to know exactly what's next. You just need to stay curious enough to wonder, what if? And remember, your next chapter doesn't have to be completely written before you begin. Sometimes you just have to be willing to turn the page. Thank you for listening to Shine a Light On. I'm Joanna Vervat, and I'll see you next time on The Next Journey.